You see, a lot of betrayal comes out of personal gain. Judas did it for the money. Absalom did it for the position. Some betrayers just do it to make themselves feel better about themselves than you. Let me give you a little news flash. Just a little one. You ready for this? God knows more about that person that you have betrayed or that you're thinking about betraying than you do. And He still chooses to use them and keep them in that position they're in. And you are not the wrath of God's vengeance against that person. Because you see, that's how betrayers justify it. Well, I'm better than them. They shouldn't be there because I know this about them. Maybe betrayers need to look in the, Steve, you hit it perfect, need to look in the mirror. Now, I'm not talking about blatant sin. But there's a way to handle that in people. And betrayal is not it. Betrayal says, I'm just going to cut your head off and ruin you and take your place. True love says, I'm willing to come and cover that and help you out of it. That's the difference in a friend and in covenant relationship and in someone who's in it just so they can look better than you. This is strong stuff, isn't it? It's strong. But you see, betrayal has got to be dealt with because Jesus said betrayal was going to increase in the last days. So you need to be aware of this. Now, I don't want. The last thing I want to happen is to make you paranoid about everyone around you. Because once that happens, the devil's won. And in my own situation and circumstance, the hardest thing for me to overcome in the process is to get back to trusting people again. Why? Because once the enemy finds out, he can beat you with something. Once betrayal has knocked you down to where you couldn't get back up for a while. Once he puts you out of business for a while because of betrayal, and you get back up and start walking again, guess what his first line of attack is going to be against you until you learn to overcome betrayal. The old expression, when it rains, it... Boy, y'all are with me, aren't you? I can't tell. You're awful quiet. I'm just trying to make sure. It's like a flood of stuff happens. I don't know whether it's something in the spirit that gets released against you. But it's amazing how when one person turns on you, it seems like there's many others around you that turn too. And I guess we can look at you look at David and Absalom, and many of David's leaders and trusted companions went with Absalom instead of with him. And Jesus' own disciples did what? They scattered. You can say what you want to about Peter, but at least Peter cut a guy's ear off. But when it came to his life, he denied Jesus 3 times. See, very few people are willing to walk through betrayal with... Well, because there's always an air of paranoia. Put this in your personal life. If it happens to you at work. Well, what they did to cause that. And people are always sticking their nose where it doesn't belong. Marriage, that's Revelation. Whatever. People look at circumstances in people's lives and who have no right to judge whatsoever, but they look and they start judging people in family situations and with their children. One may have been horribly betrayed. But everybody wants to know, well, I wonder what they did. You must have done something. Tell your neighbor, we have no right to judge. But I'm telling you also that those that find themselves in the midst of betrayal need real people to surround them and love them and care for them, or they won't survive. You say, well, isn't God enough? God's enough when His people are surrounding you. I'm tougher than I thought I was. I am. I'm tougher than I thought I was. Jill looked at me one day and she said, "You're tougher than you think you are." But I would not. And we would not have survived. We would not be in ministry today after what we went through, were it not for people who surrounded us with the right heart and are still here today. Those are the people that count. Those are the people that matter. Those are the people that you're willing to trust your vision and your heart to. And you have people in your own circles that are like that. It's been said that if you have one or two friends that stick with you for life, you're highly blessed in this day and time. I'm blessed with far more than that. But it comes through connections and through relationships. It comes through trusting. It comes through... Listen, I'm friends with people that have had stuff to them that everybody looked and scratched their heads and went, I don't know whether I want to... No. No, I'm not that kind of friend. If I say I'm going to come and... Are you okay? If I tell you, if I look at you and I'm going to say, I'm here... I'm here for you. I don't care what you do. I'm going to be here with you. I may not like what you do, but I'm not going to stab you in the back. That's never really been in me anyway. And I don't get it when it's in somebody else. I don't get it. But if I tell you I'm with you, you can count on me to be with you. Now, if you walk away from me, that's something else. But we all need people like that in our lives. Let me finish this with this. How am I going to handle betrayal? I just went through those with you so you're not missing anything. How do I handle betrayal? First is this. You've got to lay it immediately at the feet of Jesus. Psalms 55:22, we read it. Cast your burden upon the Lord and He will sustain you. He will never allow the righteous to be shaken. Man, I'll tell you what, I felt awful shaken. But when I look back, I may have been shaken on the outside or on the inside, but the Lord had me standing on the outside. Does that make sense? Kind of like the little boy in opposition to his parent who made him go sit in the corner, and he was sitting in the corner pouting, and Mama said, "You sit there, I'll tell you to get up." And he looked at her and he said, "I may be sitting on the outside, but I'm standing up on the inside." On the outside, I mean on the inside. Yeah, that's what I want. Sitting down on the outside, standing up on the inside. Well, the Lord had me to where I felt like I was falling apart on the inside. But He had me standing up on the outside to where few people knew what was happening. But you have to lay this thing at the feet of Jesus and leave it there. Immediately. Immediately. In the midst, and I really didn't intend to get this personal with all this, but in the midst of what happened to us, here's what I found. there was just a whole nest of deception. And here's what I found. When I first saw it happening, when I was still in the middle of it, I looked one lady right in the eye and I said, I know what you've done and I forgive you. And you know I've had nothing in my heart towards that person. I haven't had to fight anything. But the people that I was choosing to, God, at least squeeze something out of them. Lord, let me see them bleed. Those people, I had to work harder at releasing. Why was that? Because one was quick and immediate. I recognized it. I said, I love you anyway. I forgive you. We're going to be moving on. You have to leave that thing at the feet of Jesus, or you can't move on. Secondly, what is it doing? Oh, I see what it's doing. Where am I now? Lay it all immediately at the feet of Jesus. Give it to me. Pour your heart out to God. Pour your heart out to God like David did, because you have to let it out. I thought about this, and I read all kinds of books, and I believe all truth is God's truth. I do believe this. I believe it is unhealthy for you to hold things in your heart. And quit trying to be so perfect. There is a time to go before God and scream. There's a time to go cry. There's a time to go pout. Forget all this super, hyper faith. You got to always make the positive confession. You got to always do this. There'll be time for that later. But when you're hurting, cry, cry, cry. Old Johnny Cash song says, cry, cry, cry. Pour it out, because if you don't, you will hold it far too long. And God's there to receive it. He understands. He can handle it. He can handle you being mad at Him, but we won't get into that this morning. Thirdly, keep your testimony before men, as Jesus even called Judas friend. Now there's a key here to your testimony. It's interesting because, I got to quit. It's interesting that Jesus exposed Judas and still called him friend. Yeah, he did. He exposed him at the supper. He said, I got one going to betray me, and he's sitting right here. Who is it? The one who dips his bread in the wine glass, and he handed it to Judas. And then when Judas comes to betray him, he looks at him and he calls him friend. I thought about that. Lord, why did you do that? Because the Lord was testifying to the fact that He was innocent in all things towards Judas. And He was still calling Judas friend rather than getting in a hissy fit with him at the Lord's Supper or before the soldiers. He was saying, my integrity and my character's intact. This man has been my friend for almost 3 years. So whatever he does on his own account. Your witness is incredibly important in the midst of betrayal. And the last one's this. Don't seek vengeance nor vindication. Now, I knew from day one that vengeance was not mine. And whatever you've been betrayed in, vengeance does not belong to you. Vengeance is God's. Leave vengeance in God's hands. He's God, you're not. His greatest desire is that vengeance never has to be carried